Welcome to the Explainer. So today, we're going to tackle a really famous list from the Bible. I mean, you've probably heard it a million times. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? What if it's not about feelings at all, but a straight-up call to action?
All right, so let's get right into it. This list, it comes from the book of Galatians, chapter 5. You probably know it as the fruits of the Spirit. And for so many of us, it feels, super familiar, almost like a spiritual report card.
So you see these words, right? Love, joy, peace, patience, and instantly we think of these like internal feelings, these character traits we're supposed to be working on. The goal we've always thought is to feel more peaceful or to somehow become more patient. But is that really all there is to it?
And this is the big question for our explainer today. This is the idea that just might flip the whole thing on its head. What if this list isn't just about feelings you're supposed to have? What if it's really about actions you're supposed to take? Not just what's happening inside you, but what you are actively doing out in the world.
Okay, so where do we even start with this? Well, let's look for clues in the text itself, because the Bible actually gives us some really powerful hints that this whole idea of fruit was never supposed to be just a private, internal thing.
And here's our first big clue. Jesus says you will know them by their fruits. Now, just stop and think about that word for a second. Know. Fruit isn't supposed to be a secret, right? It's meant to be seen. It's how people identify you.
In other words, fruit is something you can actually see. It's observable. And that right there points way more toward behavior than some hidden internal feeling. I mean, think about it. You can't see my internal feeling of peace, can you? But you can definitely see me actively making peace with someone.
And this idea just keeps popping up. This quote is a perfect example of that consistent focus on moving from just being something to actually doing something. It's not enough to love with your words, it has to be in deed and in truth. And that's a pattern you see over and over. A feeling that doesn't turn into an action is, well, kind of incomplete.
I mean, just think about it for a sec. Even the greatest fruit of them all, love, is defined by what it does. That famous chapter on love, 1 Corinthians 13, it doesn't really talk about a warm, fuzzy feeling. It's almost all verbs. Love is patient. Love is kind. It endures. It's a pattern of behavior, plain and simple.
Okay, but if you really want to see how deep this goes, we've got to look at the original language. Because when you dig into the Greek, this whole action-oriented idea just lights up. The original words are packed with so much meaning that our English words just can't quite capture.
So let's start with peace. For us, that usually means, a calm feeling and absence of stress. But the original Greek word eirene is so much more active than that.
Irene wasn't just this passive idea of, oh, good, no one's fighting. No way. It meant you were actively out there creating harmony. You were working to restore what was broken, to bring wholeness back to a situation that was falling apart. It's about being a bridge builder, not just someone sitting back and enjoying the quiet.
So you see, the Bible doesn't just say, feel peace. It says, make peace. That completely reframes the whole thing. It's not a passive feeling, it's a direct command. I mean, it says, blessed are the peace makers, right? Not the peace feelers. It's a job you have to do.
All right, let's take another one. Faith. This works the exact same way. We tend to think of faith as, something you just believe in your head, a purely internal thing. But the Greek word, pistis, it's so much more bigger than that.
And this is a huge shift in thinking. Pistis isn't just about agreeing with a set of facts. It's about faithfulness. It's loyalty in action. It's a reliability that people can actually see and count on, day in and day out.
So when you look at the original meaning, a faith that doesn't result in action, well, it's not really the biblical idea of faith at all. True faith always results in action, in obedience, in consistency, in loyalty. It's a faith you can actually see.
Okay, so you might be thinking, does this just mean I have to try harder, just grit my teeth and do all these things? And the answer is a big no. The source actually gives us a really simple but powerful blueprint for how this whole inside-out transformation is supposed to work.
Yeah, it's definitely not about just trying harder in your own strength. It's more like a flow, a three-step process. First, it starts with the indwelling Spirit. That presence then leads to a real inner transformation of who you are, your character. And then from that changed character, the observable actions, the fruit, just naturally flow out. So it's spirit, then inner change, then outward action.
All right, so why does any of this matter? Like, really? How does shifting from feelings to actions change anything in our day-to-day lives? Well, this isn't just some dusty old theological debate. It actually changes everything. Let's break it down. Look at the two ways to see this. The passive view is all about asking, do I feel patient right now? It's like constantly taking your own spiritual temperature. But the action view asks a totally different question. Am I acting patiently? See the difference? One is an internal checklist that can kind of drive you crazy. The other is an outward practice. It moves us from worrying about how we feel to focusing on what we do. And that's where real authenticity comes in. And here's a quote that really gets the balance right. It's not saying that these fruits are only actions, of course not. They start as a quality, an inner transformation produced by the Spirit. But they are incomplete unless they become actions. That inner quality is only really considered complete when it shows up in what you do.
So here's a super practical way to think about this. Let's just turn all these nouns into verbs. Instead of love, think give. Instead of peace, think reconcile. Instead of patience, think endure. See how that works? You can go right down the whole list. Suddenly it's not some abstract idea anymore. It's something you can actually go out and do.
So the big takeaway here isn't just to have this new information in your head. It's about letting it change how you live. It reframes the whole thing from a passive list of feelings to an active way of life, which really just leaves us with one last question, a very personal one for all of us.